Victoria Ashford grabbed the fertility clinic file and hurled it across the boardroom table. "I don't want a catalog donor," she said, her voice cracking for the first time in 34 years. "I want him, the single father from the waiting room, the one who gave up his lunch so his daughter could have cookies." Her attorney stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "You want to ask a complete stranger to father your child, a man you've had surveilled for 4 weeks. He's not a stranger. He's the only real father I've ever seen." What happened next would destroy everything Victoria had built and rebuild something she never knew she needed. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The plate of carbonara hit Victoria Ashford square in the chest. She didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there in Giovanni's Manhattan's most exclusive Italian restaurant while sauce dripped down her $5,000 Valentino dress and every patron in the room stopped breathing. The man who'd done it was already on his feet, napkin in hand, horror written across his face. Behind him, a little girl with blonde pigtails clutched his leg like he was the only solid thing in the universe. "I'm so sorry," he said, reaching toward her. "My daughter bumped the table and—" Victoria held up one hand. The gesture stopped him cold. She knew this face. The sharp jaw, the green eyes, the athletic build now frozen in mortification. "You," she whispered. The word carried across the silent dining room like a gunshot. Marcus Williams went pale. Recognition hit him the same moment it hit her. "The fertility clinic," he said slowly. "You're the woman from the waiting room. And you're the man who made the cruelest comment anyone has ever made to me." His daughter tugged his pants. "Daddy is the sad lady mad at us." Victoria's chest tightened. She remembered that voice, that gap-toothed smile, that brutal honesty that had cut through every wall she'd ever built. "Zoe," Marcus said quietly, "go sit down, sweetheart." "But Daddy, now please." The little girl retreated to their table, still watching with those enormous green eyes. Victoria grabbed a napkin from the nearest setting and dabbed uselessly at the sauce. Her hands were shaking. When was the last time her hands had shaken? "I believe," she said, keeping her voice low, "you called me an ice queen. In front of your daughter. In front of an entire waiting room full of strangers. You made her cry. I did no such thing. You looked at her like she was a bug on your shoe. She asked you a simple question, and you—" "I answered her question. You told a 6-year-old that some people aren't meant to be happy. What kind of person says that to a child?" Victoria felt the heat rise in her face. "I was having the worst day of my life. I'd just been told I might never conceive naturally. Forgive me if I wasn't in the mood for small talk with a stranger's child." Marcus's expression shifted. Something that might have been understanding flickered across his features before hardening again. "That's rough," he admitted. But Zoe didn't know that. All she knew was a sad-looking lady who made her feel like she'd done something wrong by trying to be nice. The maitre d' appeared at Victoria's elbow, face carefully neutral. "Miss Ashford, may I offer you our private dining room? We can have your dress cleaned, of course, at no charge, and—" "That won't be necessary." Victoria pulled out her phone, fired off a text to her driver. "I'm leaving." She started toward the door, then stopped, turned back. Marcus was still standing there watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "For what it's worth," she said, "I'm sorry I upset your daughter. That wasn't my intention." Before he could respond, she was gone. The penthouse felt colder than usual. Victoria stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, still wearing the ruined dress, watching the city lights blur through a haze she refused to call tears. Her phone buzzed. Mother. Of course. She let it go to voicemail. Then listened to the message anyway, because 34 years of conditioning was hard to break. Victoria. I heard you left Giovanni's early. Eleanor Prescott saw you walking out covered in food. I hope you understand how this reflects on the family. Call me immediately. Victoria deleted the message. She poured herself 2 fingers of scotch, her father's preferred brand, the only thing of his she'd kept after he died, and sank onto the couch. The fertility clinic pamphlet was still in her purse. She pulled it out, smoothed the creases. Intentional co-parenting building families without romance. The testimonials were full of smiling strangers. Happy children. Fulfilled parents who'd found a different path to the family they wanted. Victoria had dismissed it initially. Too unconventional, too risky, too far outside the carefully controlled parameters of her life. But that was before Thomas Webb's reports started arriving. She picked up her tablet, scrolled through the surveillance files she'd memorized by now. Marcus Williams. 32. Single father. Full custody after his ex-wife abandoned them. Recently laid off from an architecture firm. Struggling financially but never once complaining. The video files were what got her. Morning footage. Marcus making pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, while Zoe chattered about her dreams. School pickup. Every single day, 3:30, exactly rain or shine. And every single day, Zoe's face lit up like Christmas when she saw him. The grocery store, Marcus holding cookies, doing mental math, putting back his own sandwich so Zoe could have what she wanted. Victoria had watched that clip 23 times. 23 times, watching a man choose his daughter's happiness over his own hunger. Her phone buzzed again. Mother. This time Victoria answered. I'm fine, Eleanor. You are not fine. You're hiding in that penthouse feeling sorry for yourself when you should be, I'm going to do something, Mother. Something you won't approve of. Silence on the line. When Eleanor spoke again, her voice had gone cold. What kind of something? I'm going to ask a man to father my child, not marry me, not date me, just be a father, a real one. Have you lost your mind? Possibly, but I'm doing it anyway. Victoria Ashford, if you think for one moment that I will allow... Victoria hung up. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. The text message took her 45 minutes to compose. She typed and deleted, typed and deleted. Every version sounded either too formal or too desperate, too presumptuous or too vague. Finally, she settled on simplicity. Mr. Williams, this is Victoria Ashford, from the fertility clinic and the restaurant. I have a proposition that will sound insane. Will you meet me to discuss? She pressed send before she could change her mind. The response came 90 seconds later. Who is this and how did you get my number? Right. Normal people didn't expect random texts from billionaires. The woman your daughter spoke to at the fertility clinic. The one your carbonara just destroyed. May I buy you coffee? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. This is extremely weird. I'm aware. But I'm curious enough to say yes. When and where Victoria named a diner in Brooklyn. His territory, not hers. Neutral ground where she'd be the one out of place. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. I'll be there. But if this is some kind of lawsuit about the dress, I should warn you, I'm currently between jobs, and you'd be wasting your time. Despite everything, Victoria smiled. It's not about the dress, Mr. Williams, I promise. Rosie's diner smelled like coffee that had been brewing since the Reagan administration. Victoria arrived 15 minutes early, chose a corner booth, and immediately felt conspicuous. Her Max Mara coat screamed money in a room full of work boots and Carhartt jackets. The waitress approached with friendly skepticism. Help you, hon? Coffee, please, black. The mug that arrived was chipped. The coffee was surprisingly decent. Victoria wrapped both hands around it and tried to remember the last time she'd been in a place like this. College, maybe. Before her mother had systematically eliminated every aspect of her life that didn't align with Ashford standards. Marcus arrived exactly at 2. Punctuality, something they shared. He slid into the booth across from her, studying her face with an intensity that made her want to look away. She forced herself to hold his gaze. So, he said, what's this about no small talk, no pretense? Victoria appreciated that. I have a medical condition that makes natural conception extremely unlikely. I'm exploring alternative options for having a child. Okay? I've spent the last 4 weeks having you investigated. Background check, surveillance, interviews with everyone who knows you. His expression darkened. You did what? I needed to know if you were really the kind of father you appeared to be. Or if what I saw in that waiting room, what I saw with your daughter, was performance. You had me followed. You spied on my kid. I watched you give up your lunch so Zoe could have cookies. That stopped him. I watched you teach her to be brave on the playground by letting her risk falling instead of catching her before she could try. I watched you walk her to school every single day, regardless of weather, and actually listen when she talked. Victoria leaned forward. I saw every neighbor, every teacher, every friend describe you as the best man they know, and I decided that I want that for my child. Not a catalog donor, not artificial insemination from a stranger, a real father who knows how to love unconditionally. Marcus stared at her for a long moment. You're asking me to be a sperm donor. I'm asking if you'd consider co-parenting with me. Shared custody, shared decisions, shared responsibility, without romantic involvement. With a woman I don't know. A woman who had me surveilled like some kind of criminal. With a woman who will do whatever it takes to ensure her child has what she never had. Which is what? Victoria's voice didn't waver. A father who actually shows up. The silence stretched between them. Marcus picked up his coffee mug. Didn't drink, set it back down. What's in it for me? Financial security. For you and for Zoe. Not charity investment. You provide love and stability and everything I don't know how to give. I provide resources and everything you're currently struggling to maintain. We each bring what the other lacks. And if we can't stand each other, then we're no worse off than millions of divorced parents who manage to co-parent successfully despite mutual dislike. Marcus laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. Lady, you are something else. Is that a yes or a no? It's an I need to think about this. It's an I need to talk to my daughter. It's an I need to figure out if you're actually serious or if this is some kind of rich person joke I don't understand. Victoria pulled a business card from her purse and slid it across the table. My personal cell. Call when you're ready to talk again. Or don't if you decide this is too much. I'll understand either way. She stood, gathered her coat. Miss Ashford. She paused. Marcus was looking at her differently now, less hostile, more curious. Why me? Seriously, you could have anyone. You could hire the best genetics money can buy. Why a broke single dad from Brooklyn who dumped pasta on your dress? Victoria considered the question carefully. Because everyone else wants something from me. My money, my connections, my influence. You looked at me in that waiting room like I was just another person having a bad day. Not an opportunity. Not a transaction. Just someone. She held his gaze. And because I saw the way your daughter looks at you, like you hung the moon, like you're the safest place in the world, I want my child to look at someone that way, and I want that someone to deserve it. She walked out before he could respond. 3 days later, Victoria's phone rang at 11 p.m. I talked to Zoe about it. Victoria sat up straight, heart pounding. Not the specifics, Marcus continued. Just the concept of maybe having a sibling someday. A baby, brother or sister. What did she say? She wanted to know if the baby could sleep in her room. She wanted to know if she could teach it to draw. She wanted to know if... His voice caught. If the baby's mommy would be nicer than her mommy was. Victoria closed her eyes. I didn't know what to tell her, Marcus said. Her mother walked out when Zoe was 4. Just left. Said she needed to find herself. Hasn't contacted us since. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, Be honest. If we actually do this crazy thing, are you going to be there? Not just financially. Actually there. For the hard parts. For the messy parts. For all of it. Yes. You sound sure. I am sure. Why? You don't know how to be a mother. You said so yourself. No, but I know how not to be one, and I'm willing to learn the rest. Another long pause. Victoria could hear him breathing, could almost hear him thinking. I have conditions, he finally said. Name them. Legal documentation of everything, custody arrangements, financial responsibilities, medical decisions. I want my parental rights protected in writing before we do anything. Agreed. I'll have my attorney draft a contract this week. And I don't want charity disguised as child support. If you're covering expenses, I need it structured so it doesn't feel like you're my employer. We can work out fair terms. One more thing. Yes. Zoe has to approve. If she doesn't like you, really like you, not just tolerate you, then this doesn't happen. She comes first, always. Victoria felt something shift in her chest. Something that might have been hope. I wouldn't have it any other way, Mr. Williams. Marcus. Excuse me? If we're going to have a kid together, you should probably call me Marcus. Despite everything, Victoria smiled. Then you should call me Victoria. Victoria. He tried it out. Okay, when do we start? How about Saturday the zoo? You, me, and Zoe. Let her decide if she can stand me for more than 5 minutes. His laugh was warmer this time, real. The zoo? Yeah, she'll love that. 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. Victoria hung up and sat in the darkness of her penthouse, staring at the city lights, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Possibility. Saturday morning, Marcus picked her up in his aging Honda Civic. The dashboard was cracked. The back seat was covered in crayons and snack wrappers and artwork. The contrast to Victoria's Tesla made her want to laugh and cry at the same time. Zoe bounced in her booster seat, apparently having forgiven Victoria for the waiting room incident. Miss Victoria, are you excited for the elephants? Elephants are my favorite. Well, elephants and penguins. And giraffes. And definitely the red pandas. Victoria turned in her seat. I'm very excited. Tell me about the red pandas. Zoe launched into a detailed explanation that lasted the entire drive. Marcus caught Victoria's eye in the rearview mirror and smiled. The zoo was packed. Families everywhere. Children running in packs. Parents engaged in the kind of casual chaos that seemed equal parts exhausting and joyful. Victoria felt like an anthropologist studying an alien species. Then Zoe grabbed her hand, just reached up and took it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Come on, Miss Victoria, the elephants are this way. Victoria let herself be pulled forward. The small hand in hers felt warm, trusting. When had anyone last trusted her like this? At the elephant enclosure, Zoe pressed against the railing, pointing at the largest one. That's Patty. She's the oldest. Did you know elephants never forget anything, like ever? They remember people even after years and years. I didn't know that. It's true. Daddy told me. Zoe looked up at Victoria with sudden seriousness. Do you forget things? Sometimes. Do you forget people? Victoria thought of her father. Dead for 15 years. His face already fading in her memory. Sometimes, she said again. Even when I don't want to. Zoe nodded solemnly. That's sad. You should try to remember more. Remembering is important. Marcus appeared beside them, carrying 3 overpriced lemonades. Everything okay? Miss Victoria forgets people sometimes, Zoe informed him. I told her she should try harder. Did you now? It's good advice, Daddy. Marcus handed Victoria a lemonade. Their fingers brushed. His eyes were warm. She gives a lot of advice. Not all of it makes sense. This makes sense, Victoria said quietly. She's right. I should try harder. They moved through the zoo at Zoe pace, which meant stopping at every exhibit for extended observation and commentary. At the gift shop, Zoe pressed her face against the glass, transfixed by a stuffed elephant. Victoria saw Marcus check the price tag, saw him do the mental math, saw the moment he decided they couldn't afford it. "Which one's your favorite?" Victoria asked. Zoe pointed at the elephant. "That one. But it's okay. Daddy says we're saving money for important things." "What if I got it for you as a thank you for being such an excellent tour guide today?" Zoe's eyes went wide. "Really?" Marcus stiffened. "Miss Ashford, Victoria, you don't have to." "I want to, please." Something passed between them. A silent negotiation. Finally, Marcus nodded. Victoria bought the elephant. Zoe's squeal of delight drew smiles from everyone in the store. Then the little girl threw her arms around Victoria's waist. "Thank you, Miss Victoria. I'm naming her Ella." Victoria's arms came up slowly, awkwardly. She hugged back. It had been a very long time since anyone had hugged her. Over Zoe's head, she met Marcus's eyes. He was watching with an expression that made her chest tight. Something was starting here. Something she didn't have a name for yet. But for the first time in 34 years, Victoria Ashford wasn't afraid to find out what it was. The weeks that followed the zoo trip changed everything Victoria thought she knew about herself. She started showing up at Marcus's apartment twice a week, first for what they called planning sessions, legal documents, medical consultations, financial arrangements. But the planning sessions kept getting derailed by Zoe's homework, help requests by dinner invitations, by bedtime stories that somehow required Victoria's participation. "You do the princess voice better than Daddy," Zoe informed her one evening, handing over a worn copy of Cinderella. "I do not do voices." "You do now. Page 12, the fairy godmother part." Victoria looked at Marcus for rescue. He just shrugged and grinned. "She's the boss. I learned that a long time ago." So Victoria did the fairy godmother voice, and the evil stepmother voice, and somehow ended up doing all the voices while Zoe giggled and Marcus watched from the doorway with an expression that made Victoria's stomach flip in ways she didn't want to examine too closely. The legal process moved forward with the kind of efficiency that money could buy. Jessica Park drafted contracts. Genetic testing confirmed compatibility. Dr. Hammond's psychological evaluation cleared them both, though not without pointed questions that made Victoria squirm. What happens if you develop romantic feelings for each other? Victoria's answer had been immediate. We won't. But that was before the juice incident. It happened on a Thursday evening. Victoria was at Marcus's apartment, a cramped Brooklyn space that smelled like laundry soap and kid shampoo and something indefinably warm. She'd been helping Zoe with her spelling words while Marcus cooked spaghetti. "Miss Victoria, how do you spell beautiful?" "Beautiful." Zoe wrote it carefully, tongue poking out in concentration. "Daddy says you're beautiful." Victoria's pen stopped moving. "He does?" "Uh-huh. He told Uncle Royce on the phone. He said you're beautiful but scary. What does scary mean when it's about a person?" Before Victoria could formulate a response, Zoe reached for her apple juice. The container was too big for her small hands. Victoria saw it happening in slow motion, the tip, the splash, the cold liquid soaking through her cashmere sweater. Zoe's face crumpled. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." The terror in that small voice stopped Victoria cold. This wasn't normal upset. This was a child bracing for punishment, a child who expected anger. Victoria thought of her own childhood, the locked rooms, the cold silences, the systematic crushing of every emotional response until she'd learned to feel nothing at all. She knelt down so she was eye level with Zoe. "Hey, look at me." Zoe's eyes were wet, her lower lip trembling. "It's okay. Accidents happen to everyone. You're not mad. Not even a little bit. It's just a sweater. Sweaters can be washed." The relief on Zoe's face was so profound that something cracked inside Victoria's chest. She opened her arms and Zoe crashed into them, small body shaking with leftover fear. I'm sorry, Zoe kept whispering. I'm sorry. Shh, it's really okay, I promise. Over Zoe's head, Victoria saw Marcus standing in the kitchen doorway. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were bright. When Zoe finally pulled back, wiping her nose with her sleeve, Marcus spoke quietly. That was exactly the right thing to do. What else would I have done? Yelled, gotten angry, made her feel terrible about a mistake. He paused. Her mother used to yell. A lot. Victoria stood still, feeling the phantom weight of Zoe's arms around her neck. I'm not her mother. No, Marcus said. You're not. Something shifted between them in that moment. Victoria couldn't name it, but she felt it, a door opening somewhere, letting in light she hadn't known she was missing. The therapy sessions with Dr. Hammond continued weekly. Victoria found herself saying things she'd never said out loud before. My mother locked me in my room when I was 8, for 24 hours, because I cried. Dr. Hammond's expression remained neutral, but her pen moved faster across her notepad. What made you cry? A kitten. I found a stray kitten and hid it in my room for 3 days. My mother made me put it outside in the rain. And when you cried, she said Thornton women don't cry. She said tears are weapons of the weak. She said when she opened the door the next day, I would be stronger. Were you? Victoria considered the question. I never cried again. Not once in 26 years. That's not strength, Victoria. That's survival. The distinction hit harder than Victoria expected. She'd spent her whole life believing her emotional numbness was an achievement, a skill, something that made her better than everyone else. What if it just made her broken? Marcus started calling late at night. The first time Victoria almost didn't answer, it was past midnight, and she assumed something was wrong. Is Zoe okay? She's fine, sleeping like a rock. He paused. I just couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about stuff. What kind of stuff? You, this, whether we're completely insane for doing this. Victoria settled deeper into her couch phone, pressed to her ear. Probably. That doesn't worry you. Everything worries me, but this worries me less than the alternative. Which is, spending the rest of my life alone, raising a child by myself with no idea how to love it properly, repeating every mistake my mother made because I don't know any other way. The silence on the line stretched long enough that Victoria wondered if he'd hung up. Victoria. Yes. You already know how to love. I've watched you with Zoe. You just don't realize you're doing it. She didn't know how to respond to that. Didn't know how to explain that every moment with Zoe felt like walking a tightrope over a canyon, terrifying and exhilarating and completely foreign. Tell me something about yourself, she said instead. Something that's not in the private investigator's report. Marcus laughed. You know, I'm still creeped out that you had me followed, right? I know. Tell me anyway. Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Softer. I was terrified when Zoe was born. Like genuinely paralyzed with fear. Keisha, my ex, she handed me this tiny screaming thing, and all I could think was, I'm going to break it. I'm going to mess this up so badly. But you didn't. Not for lack of trying. The first week home, I forgot to support her head during a bath. She slipped under the water for maybe half a second. I grabbed her out and she was fine, but I didn't sleep for 3 days. Just sat there watching her breathe, convinced I was going to kill her through incompetence. Victoria found herself smiling. You're a good father, Marcus. I'm a scared father who got lucky. There's a difference. I don't think there is. They talked until 3 a.m. about his childhood in Queens, about her childhood in the Ashford penthouse, about the ways their mothers had shaped them, his through warmth and sacrifice, hers through coldness and control. When Victoria finally hung up, something had changed. She wasn't just building a co-parenting arrangement anymore. She was building something else entirely. The thunderstorm came on a Thursday night in October. Victoria was at Marcus's apartment reviewing baby-proofing catalogs while Zoe colored at the kitchen table. They'd officially decided to move forward with conception. The IVF appointments were scheduled. The legal documents were signed. It was really happening. The first crack of thunder made Zoe jump. The second one closer made her whimper. "Daddy!" Marcus was already moving toward her, but Zoe didn't go to him. She went to Victoria, small arms wrapped around Victoria's waist, a terrified face pressed against her stomach. "I'm scared." Victoria froze. Every instinct screamed that she was unqualified for this, that she would say the wrong thing, that she would somehow damage this precious child who had inexplicably chosen her for comfort. But Zoe was trembling, and there was no time to overthink. Her arms came up slowly, wrapped around the small shoulders, held on. "You're safe, sweetie. I've got you." Another crack of thunder. Zoe whimpered again. And then, from somewhere deep in Victoria's memory, a melody surfaced. Something her nanny had sung when Victoria was very small. Before her mother had decided the woman was too affectionate and dismissed her. French words about the moon and stars, and being safe through the night. Victoria started singing. Her voice was rough, unpracticed. She couldn't remember all the words and had to hum through parts. But Zoe's trembling slowed. Her grip loosened. By the time the song ended, the little girl was calm. "That was pretty," Zoe said, pulling back to look at Victoria with wide eyes. "What language was that?" "French, a song someone used to sing to me when I was very little." "Will you sing it to my baby brother or sister?" Victoria's throat tightened. "You want me to?" "Yeah. It made me feel safe. The baby should feel safe too." Marcus was standing a few feet away. Victoria hadn't heard him approach. His eyes were wet. After Zoe was back in bed, they sat on the couch in silence. The storm had passed, but something else was building between them. Something Victoria didn't know how to name. "You're a natural," Marcus said finally. "You just don't believe it yet." "I didn't know what I was doing." That's what every parent feels. The fact that she came to you instead of me, that means something. What does it mean? It means she trusts you, completely. Victoria felt the words settle into her chest. I've never had that before. Someone trusting me, not for what I can do for them or what I can give them, just trusting me. It's terrifying, isn't it? Yes. Good. That means you care. He shifted closer, close enough that Victoria could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Can I tell you something? He asked. Yes. I've been trying really hard to keep this professional, to remember that we have an agreement, that this is about the baby, about co-parenting, about giving our kid the best possible start. Victoria's heart was pounding. But I think about you constantly. When you're not here, I'm counting hours until you come back. When you are here, I can't stop watching you. The way you look at Zoe, the way you're trying so hard to be someone different than who you were raised to be. He turned to face her. His eyes were serious. I'm falling for you, Victoria. I don't know how to stop it, and I'm not sure I want to. The words hung between them. Victoria should have said something sensible, something about boundaries, something about their agreement, their contract, the careful structure they'd built to protect everyone involved. Instead, she said, I'm falling for you too. We should probably talk about what that means. Probably. Figure out how it changes things. Yes. Neither of them moved. Or, Marcus said slowly, we could just... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Victoria kissed him. It was nothing like she expected, not calculated, not controlled, just warmth and want, and the terrifying recognition of genuine connection. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. Well, he said, that complicates things. Considerably. Are you okay with complicated? Victoria thought about her life before this. The penthouse that felt like a prison. The mother who had trained her to feel nothing. The decades of emptiness she'd accepted as normal. "I think," she said carefully, "that complicated might be exactly what I need." The late-night phone calls became something else after that. Not planning sessions, not business discussions, just talking. About everything. About nothing. "What was the happiest moment of your childhood?" Marcus asked one night, his voice warm through the phone. Victoria had to think. Really think. "There was a nanny. Before my mother fired her for being too affectionate. She used to take me to Central Park on her days off. We'd feed the ducks and she'd tell me stories about growing up in Ireland." "What happened to her?" "I don't know. My mother let her go when I was 7. I wasn't allowed to say goodbye." "That's brutal." "That was normal. In my family, attachment was weakness. The nanny got too close, so she had to go." "Is that why you're scared of getting close to people?" The question cut deeper than Victoria expected. "Probably. Every time I've loved something, it's been taken away. The nanny. The kitten. My father died when I was 19, heart attack completely sudden. My mother didn't even let me attend the funeral." "What?" "She said it would be too emotional, that I needed to be strong for the family. So she sent me to a board meeting instead and had the funeral without me." Marcus was silent for so long that Victoria wondered if she'd said too much, revealed too much, given him reasons to run. "I'm going to say something," he finally said, "and I need you to really hear it." "Okay." "What your mother did to you was abuse, not discipline, not tough love, abuse. And the fact that you survived it, that you're still capable of feeling anything at all, that you can love Zoe the way you do, that makes you one of the strongest people I've ever met." Victoria's eyes burned. She couldn't remember the last time someone had called her strong for her feelings rather than her lack of them. "I don't feel strong." "That's because you've been measuring strength by the wrong scale, your mother's scale. But strength isn't about not feeling. It's about feeling everything and choosing to stay soft anyway." The tears came then. For the first time in 26 years, Victoria cried. Not much. Just a few tears that slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. But it was something. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked. "No," Victoria said. "But I think that might be okay." The relationship deepened over the following weeks. They didn't tell anyone at first. It felt too new, too fragile, too easily broken by outside opinions. Victoria still came to the apartment twice a week, still played with Zoe, still pretended everything was normal. But the touches lingered longer. The looks lasted longer. The goodbye kisses at the door stretched into something that made Victoria late for every evening meeting on her calendar. "Daddy's happier," Zoe announced one Saturday morning, completely unprompted. "He smiles more." "Is it because of Miss Victoria?" Marcus choked on his coffee. Victoria felt heat rise in her face. "What makes you say that?" Marcus asked carefully. "Because he makes that face when he looks at her. The same face Tommy's dad makes at Tommy's mom." "What face?" "The mushy face." Victoria pressed her lips together to keep from laughing. Marcus looked mortified. "It's called caring about someone," he said. "Grown-ups make that face when they care about someone." "So you care about Miss Victoria?" "Yes." "Like a lot?" "Yes, Zoe, a lot." Zoe considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice weighing constitutional matters. "Good," she finally declared. "I like Miss Victoria. She does better voices than you anyway." That afternoon, while Zoe napped, Victoria and Marcus sat on the couch and had the conversation they'd been avoiding. "What are we doing?" Victoria asked. "I don't know. What do you want to be doing?" "I want—" She stopped. Tried again. "I want this to be real. Not just the co-parenting, not just the arrangement, all of it." "It is real." "But what if it falls apart? What if we end up hating each other and our child is caught in the middle?" "Then we'll handle it like adults, like the adults we're both trying to be." Marcus took her hand. "Victoria." I spent 3 years married to someone who didn't love me, who didn't love our daughter, who walked out the door one day and never looked back. I know what fake looks like. This isn't that. How can you be sure? Because fake doesn't feel like this. Fake doesn't make me want to be better. Fake doesn't make me excited about the future for the first time in years. He lifted her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. I'm not asking you to have all the answers. I'm just asking you to try. With me. One day at a time. Victoria looked at this man who had somehow become the center of her new life. This single father with his cramped apartment and his perfect daughter and his worn-out car that smelled like kid snacks. 3 months ago, she would have dismissed him as unsuitable. Too poor. Too ordinary. Too far beneath the Ashford standards her mother had drilled into her. Now she couldn't imagine wanting anyone else. Okay, she said. One day at a time. Marcus smiled. Okay. The kiss that followed felt like a promise. Victoria should have known it couldn't last. Happiness had always been temporary in her life, something to be snatched away the moment she started believing in it. She should have been watching, should have been careful. But love had made her careless. 3 weeks after that conversation on a rainy night in November, Victoria and Marcus were walking back to his apartment after dinner. Zoe was with Mrs. Hartley, their neighbor. They'd taken advantage of the rare alone time to eat at a restaurant that didn't have crayons on the table. The rain started unexpectedly. They ducked under a bodega awning, pressed close together, laughing about getting caught in the downpour. Marcus kissed her, and Victoria kissed back, not caring who might see. That was her mistake. The flash of movement came from a car parked across the street. A silver Mercedes with tinted windows. A face that Victoria knew better than her own, Eleanor Ashford watching from behind the glass. Ice flooded Victoria's veins. Oh God. Marcus pulled back, sensing the change. What's wrong? My mother. She's here. She saw us. He followed her gaze to the Mercedes. So we explain. We tell her we're together. You don't understand. She'll destroy you. Let her try. Marcus, I'm serious. The last person who challenged her, a business rival, she demolished him. Career, reputation, family, everything. And that was someone with power and resources. You don't have... Her phone buzzed. Eleanor's text was brief. End this in 48 hours or I begin. You know what I'm capable of. Victoria's hands were shaking. 26 years of conditioning screamed that there was no choice here. Eleanor always won. Resistance was futile. What does it say? Marcus asked. Victoria showed him the screen. His jaw tightened. She's threatening you. She's threatening us, both of us. Zoe too. Then we fight back. With what? You don't have money. You don't have connections. You don't have any protection against what she can do. I have you. The simplicity of it broke something in Victoria's chest. He didn't understand. Couldn't understand. Eleanor Ashford didn't lose. She didn't negotiate. She destroyed anyone who stood in her way, and she did it thoroughly, systematically, without remorse. Marcus and Zoe would be easy prey. The Mercedes pulled away slowly. Eleanor's message clear. I see you. This won't stand. Victoria made her decision in that moment. Love was a luxury she couldn't afford, not when it came with a price this steep. Better to be alone and miserable than responsible for ruining the lives of the only people who had ever made her feel human. I have to go, she said. Victoria, wait. But she was already walking away into the rain, leaving Marcus standing under the awning with an expression of confused hurt that would haunt her for weeks. By the time she reached her penthouse, the walls were closing in again. She picked up her phone and typed the hardest words she'd ever written. This was a mistake. I'm sorry. Please don't contact me again. Then she blocked his number before he could respond. It felt like cutting off her own arm. Necessary. Agonizing. The only way to stop the bleeding. Victoria sat alone in her penthouse, surrounded by luxury that had never felt more empty, and wondered if she'd just destroyed the only real thing she'd ever had. But at least Marcus and Zoe would be safe. That had to be enough. The silence lasted 3 days before Victoria started to crack. She threw herself into work. 18-hour days, board meetings, quarterly reviews, conference calls that stretched past midnight. Anything to fill the hollow space where Marcus and Zoe used to be. Her assistant Melissa noticed. Everyone noticed. "Miss Ashford, you've canceled your personal appointments for the 3rd week in a row." "Should I be concerned?" "I'm fine, Melissa." "You don't look fine." "That will be all." The penthouse felt like a tomb. Victoria wandered through rooms that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime and felt absolutely nothing. The emptiness had returned worse than before, because now she knew what she was missing. She kept reaching for her phone to text Marcus, kept forgetting she'd blocked him, kept remembering the look on his face when she'd walked away. On the 4th day, Eleanor called. "I'm pleased you came to your senses." Victoria gripped her phone so hard the case creaked. "Is that all you have to say? What else is there? You made the right decision. That man was completely unsuitable. A single father with no prospects, no pedigree, no future worth mentioning. You would have been laughed out of every boardroom in the country. He made me happy. Happiness is temporary. Position is permanent. You'll thank me eventually." "I will never thank you for this." Eleanor's sigh carried decades of condescension. "Don't be dramatic, Victoria. The Vanderbilts are hosting a gala next Friday. Their son is recently divorced. Excellent family, old money appropriate match. I expect you there." "No." "Excuse me. I said no. I'm not going to your gala. I'm not meeting their son, and I'm done letting you control my life." The silence on the line stretched dangerous and cold. "You forget yourself," Eleanor said finally. "Everything you have, the company, the penthouse, your position exists because of me. I made you. I can unmake you just as easily." "Then do it." "What?" "Unmake me. Take it all. I don't care anymore." Victoria hung up before Eleanor could respond. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. She'd just declared war on the most dangerous person she knew, and she had no weapons, no allies, no plan. But she also, for the first time in her life, felt free. The message from Royce came through a colleague who owed him a favor. It arrived at Victoria's office as a physical letter hand-delivered to bypass any digital monitoring Eleanor might have arranged. Victoria's hands trembled as she opened it. "Where's Miss Victoria? Did I make her mad? Daddy won't tell me what happened, but he's sad all the time now. Is it because of the storm? I'm sorry I got scared. Please come back. I miss you. Love, Zoe. P.S. Ella, the elephant misses you too." Victoria read the letter 3 times. Then she locked herself in the executive bathroom and cried. The tears came in waves, now breaking through 26 years of suppression, like water through a cracked dam. She cried for Zoe, for Marcus, for the child she might never have, for the life she'd glimpsed and thrown away. When she finally emerged, mascara ruined and eyes swollen, she knew what she had to do. Eleanor Ashford had controlled Victoria's entire life through fear. Fear of punishment. Fear of rejection. Fear of being unworthy of love. But Victoria wasn't afraid anymore. She was furious. The research started that night. Victoria had access to Ashford Industries files through her position as co-CEO. She'd never abused that access before, had never needed to, had never wanted to know what shadows her mother hid. Now, she wanted to know everything. Eleanor's private office files were password protected, but Victoria had watched her mother type the code enough times to guess correctly on the 3rd attempt. What she found made her stomach turn. Documentation of bribes dating back 15 years. City officials paid off to expedite building permits. Inspectors compensated to overlook code violations. The amounts were staggering, nearly $2 million in illegal payments. Then came the emails. Eleanor to the construction manager on the Riverside building, the one that partially collapsed in 2019. Cut the steel specifications below code requirements. We need to reduce costs by 8% minimum. His written response: Mrs. Ashford, this violates safety standards and puts lives at risk. I strongly recommend against this course of action. Eleanor's reply: Do it or you're terminated. The building will be fine. The building hadn't been fine. Structural failure 6 months after completion. 2 people hospitalized with serious injuries. Ashford Industries had settled quietly NDAs, signed no admission of guilt. But the emails proved Eleanor had known the danger and proceeded anyway. Victoria photographed everything with shaking hands. There was more. Evidence of tax evasion through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Documentation of threatened board members who had opposed Eleanor's decisions. A pattern of systematic intimidation spanning decades. By the time she finished, Victoria had enough evidence to end her mother's career. Possibly send her to prison. She also had enough to destroy Ashford Industries, entirely taking innocent employees and shareholders down with it. The weight of the decision pressed on her chest like a physical force. "What would you do?" she whispered to the empty penthouse. "If you had the power to stop someone who'd hurt you your whole life, but stopping them might hurt others too." No answer came. She hadn't expected one, but she knew someone who might understand. Finding Aunt Grace took 3 phone calls and a 4-hour drive. Victoria hadn't seen her aunt since childhood. Eleanor had cut off contact when Grace refused to support some business decision, deeming her disloyal to the family. The cottage upstate looked like something from a postcard. White picket fence. Garden overflowing with flowers. A porch swing moving gently in the autumn breeze. The woman who opened the door was in her late 60s, gray-haired, wearing paint-stained overalls, and a warm smile that reminded Victoria heartbreakingly of what her mother might have been in a different life. "Victoria!" Grace's eyes widened. "My God, you look just like her, but your eyes are kinder." "May I come in?" The cottage interior was everything Eleanor would have despised. Cluttered with books and art supplies, warm with afternoon sun, lived in rather than curated. Photos covered one wall. Victoria found herself drawn to an image of young Grace with a man, both of them laughing. "That's James," Grace said, appearing at her shoulder. "We were going to be married. I was 32, he was 35, high school history teacher. The kindest man I ever knew." "What happened?" "Your mother happened." Grace settled into a worn armchair and gestured for Victoria to sit. "Eleanor told our mother that James was unsuitable. Wrong social class, wrong profession, wrong everything. When I refused to end things, she took matters into her own hands." "What did she do?" "Had him fired from his teaching position. Spread rumors that he'd had inappropriate relationships with students, completely fabricated but devastating nonetheless. The investigation destroyed his reputation. He left town rather than fight it." Grace's voice caught. "I never saw him again." Victoria thought of Marcus, of the CPS visit that was probably already being planned, of the fabricated accusations Eleanor could manufacture with a single phone call. "I came here to ask for your help," Victoria said. "I have evidence of Eleanor's crimes. Bribery, tax evasion, safety violations that hurt people. I'm going to take it to the board, and then to authorities if necessary. You're going to war with your mother. I'm going to stop her from hurting anyone else, including the man I love." Grace studied her for a long moment. "Tell me about him." So Victoria did. Everything. The fertility clinic, the surveillance, the zoo trip, Zoe's questions about happiness, the juice incident, the thunderstorm, the kiss in the rain that had started the downfall. When she finished, Grace was smiling through tears. "You found it," she said. "What I lost, what Eleanor took from me. I'm trying to, but she's threatening to destroy him and his daughter, and I don't know how to fight her." "You fight her with the truth. That's the one thing Eleanor can't manipulate: facts, evidence, documentation." Grace stood and walked to an old desk in the corner. I've kept things, over the years. Letters she sent threatening me. Records of the lies she told to destroy James. I never knew what to do with them. She pulled out a thick folder and handed it to Victoria. Now I do. Victoria spent 3 hours going through Grace's documentation. Letters from Eleanor explicitly threatening to ruin Grace if she didn't comply with family expectations. Evidence of the fabricated accusations against James. A pattern of manipulation and control spanning 30 years. I'll testify, Grace said, to whatever board or committee or court needs to hear it. Eleanor has gotten away with this for too long. I should have stood up to her decades ago. Maybe if I had, you wouldn't have grown up the way you did. It's not too late. No. Grace took Victoria's hands. It's not. But you need to be prepared for what comes next. Eleanor won't go down quietly. She'll burn everything around her before she admits defeat. I know. Including you. Including the people you love. Victoria thought of Marcus's face when she'd walked away. Of Zoe's letter. Of the family she'd thrown away to protect them from exactly this. Then I need to warn them, she said. Before this starts, they deserve to know what's coming. Do they know you still love them? The question cut deep. Victoria shook her head. Then maybe start with that. The drive back to Brooklyn took 3 hours through rush hour traffic. Victoria used the time to compose and delete a dozen different messages. Every version sounded wrong, too formal, too desperate, too small for the weight of what she needed to say. Finally, she gave up on words. She unblocked Marcus's number and typed one sentence. I made a terrible mistake. Can we talk? The response took 45 minutes. 45 minutes of staring at her phone, convinced he'd decided she wasn't worth the trouble. Then, Rosie's, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Don't block me again. I won't. I promise. The diner looked exactly the same, but everything felt different. Marcus was already there when Victoria arrived. He didn't stand, didn't smile. Just watched her slide into the booth across from him with an expression that was carefully, deliberately neutral. Talk, he said. Victoria took a breath. My mother saw us that night, in the rain. She texted me an ultimatum: end things in 48 hours or she'd destroy you. So you just walked away, without telling me. I was trying to protect you. By disappearing. By making Zoe think she did something wrong. The words landed like blows. Victoria forced herself not to look away. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I thought protecting you meant staying away. I thought if I just cut off contact she'd leave you alone. And did she? Victoria's stomach dropped. What do you mean? CPS showed up at my apartment 3 days ago. Anonymous complaint about my living situation and my fitness as a parent. They wanted to interview Zoe about whether she felt safe. Oh God. Yeah, oh God. Marcus's voice was bitter. They found nothing, of course, because there's nothing to find. But Zoe was terrified. She thought someone was going to take her away. Victoria felt sick. She'd sacrificed everything to keep them safe, and Eleanor had attacked anyway. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't undo what you did. You made decisions for me, Victoria, about my life, my daughter, our future, without asking, without explaining. That's exactly what you accused your mother of doing. I know. You're right. I spent 3 weeks thinking I imagined everything, the connection, the feelings, all of it, thinking maybe you'd just been playing some rich person game and got bored. It wasn't a game. It was the most real thing in my life. Victoria leaned forward. And I'm not running anymore. I found evidence of my mother's crimes, bribery, tax evasion, safety violations that hurt people. I'm taking it to the board. She's going to face consequences for the first time in her life. And that changes things how? It changes everything. She won't be able to threaten anyone anymore. Not you, not Zoe, not me. Marcus studied her for a long moment. You're declaring war on your own mother. I'm stopping a bully who's hurt people for decades. I should have done it years ago. And you came here to... What warned me get my blessing. I came here to tell you the truth, to apologize, to ask if there's any chance at all, that we could start over." The silence stretched between them. Victoria could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. "Zoe asks about you every day," Marcus finally said. "Every single day. Where's Miss Victoria? When is she coming back? Does she still like me? Does she still like you?" Marcus shook his head. "Victoria, that little girl loves you, and you walked away without saying goodbye." "I know." That broke something in her. The trust she was building, the security she was starting to feel, you damaged that. The words cut deeper than anything Eleanor had ever said. "I can fix it," Victoria said. "If you let me try, I can earn back her trust, and yours." "Can you?" "I don't know, but I want to try. I want to be there, for all of it, the hard parts and the messy parts and everything in between." Marcus reached across the table, took her hand. "This is going to get ugly," he said. "Your mother isn't going to let you go without a fight." "I know. She'll come after us, both of us. She'll use everything she has." "I know. And you're sure you want to do this? Take her on, burn down your whole life." Victoria thought about the penthouse that felt like a prison, the career built on a foundation of fear, the decades of emptiness she'd accepted as normal. "My whole life isn't worth saving," she said. "But this is. You and Zoe, and whatever we might build together, that's worth fighting for." Marcus's grip tightened on her hand. "Then we fight together," he said. "No more running. No more protecting me by leaving. Whatever comes next, we face it as a team. Partners. Partners." He stood, pulled her to her feet, and kissed her in the middle of Rosie's diner while the waitress pretended not to watch. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus was smiling for the first time since she'd walked in. "Zoe's with Mrs. Hartley," he said. "She doesn't know you're back yet." "Can we go get her?" "Yeah." He took her hand. "Let's go get her." The reunion with Zoe was everything Victoria needed and nothing she deserved. The little girl saw her from across the playground and froze. For one terrible moment, Victoria thought Zoe was going to turn away, run away, reject her the way Victoria had rejected them. Then Zoe was running toward her, small legs pumping, pigtails flying. "Miss Victoria!" She crashed into Victoria's legs hard enough to make her stumble. Small arms wrapped around her waist with desperate strength. "You came back. You came back. I knew you would come back." Victoria knelt down, gathering Zoe into her arms, holding on like the child was the only solid thing in a world gone sideways. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I left without saying goodbye." "It's okay. You're here now." "I should have explained. I should have told you. Daddy said you were scared. He said sometimes grown-ups get scared just like kids, and when they're scared, they make mistakes." Victoria pulled back to look at Zoe's face. "Your daddy said that." "Uh-huh. He said you were scared of your mommy. Is your mommy mean?" "Yes, sweetie. She's very mean. Meaner than the wicked stepmother in Cinderella. Much meaner." Zoe considered this with characteristic seriousness. "Then you can stay with us. We'll protect you from the mean mommy. Right, Daddy?" Marcus had approached without Victoria noticing. He was smiling, but his eyes were wet. "Right, Pumpkin. We'll protect her." "Good." Zoe nodded decisively. "Now can we get ice cream?" "I think we need celebration ice cream." They got ice cream, and dinner, and more bedtime stories than any child actually needed. By the time Zoe finally fell asleep clutching her stuffed elephant and mumbling about protecting Miss Victoria from mean mommies, Victoria felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. "She forgave you pretty fast," Marcus said as they settled on the couch. "Kids are resilient." "She's not just resilient. She loves you. And she was holding on to that love even when you weren't here." Victoria leaned into him, exhausted and grateful. I don't deserve her. Maybe not. But you've got her anyway. And me. And whatever comes next. The board meeting is Tuesday. I'm presenting the evidence. Once I do that, there's no going back. Are you ready? No. Victoria took a breath. But I'm going to do it anyway. Do you need anything? Support backup. I need you to keep Zoe safe. Whatever happens in that boardroom, Eleanor's going to retaliate. She might come after you again. Let her try. Marcus. I mean it. I've been a target before. When Keisha left, when money got tight, when it seemed like everything was falling apart, I survived. I'll survive this too. And so will Zoe. He pulled her closer. You focus on taking down Goliath. I'll hold down the fort. Victoria closed her eyes and let herself lean into his strength. I love you, she said. The words came out before she could stop them. I know. Marcus kissed the top of her head. I love you too. Even when you're an idiot who runs away instead of talking to me. I'm working on that. Good. Because if you ever do it again, I'm coming after you. And I'm bringing Zoe. And probably the stuffed elephant. We'll stage an intervention. Despite everything, Victoria laughed. The sound surprised her. She hadn't really laughed in weeks. But here in this cramped apartment that smelled like kid shampoo and spaghetti sauce, wrapped in the arms of a man who loved her despite her worst decisions, Victoria felt something she'd never expected to feel. Home. The battle was coming. Eleanor would fight with everything she had. The board meeting would be brutal, the aftermath worse. But for the first time in her life, Victoria wasn't facing it alone. And that made all the difference. The 5 days before the board meeting passed in a blur of preparation and terror. Victoria barely slept. She reviewed documents until her eyes ached. She rehearsed her presentation until the words lost meaning. She met with Mitchell Sterling, the attorney who would stand beside her when she detonated a bomb in the middle of Ashford Industries. You understand what you're doing, Sterling said during their final preparation session. Once you present this evidence, there's no taking it back. Your mother's career is over. The company will face investigation. Your own position becomes complicated. I understand. Your mother will fight. She has resources, connections, decades of leverage built up across this industry. She won't go down quietly. I know who she is. Do you? Sterling leaned forward. I've seen people like Eleanor Ashford before. When they're cornered, they become dangerous, not just professionally, personally. She might try to hurt you in ways that have nothing to do with business. Victoria thought of Marcus, of Zoe, of the family she was trying to build while simultaneously destroying the one she'd been born into. That's why I'm doing this now, before she can do any more damage. Sterling nodded slowly. Then let's make sure we do it right. The night before the meeting, Victoria couldn't stay away from Marcus's apartment. She showed up at 9 o'clock, still in her work clothes, hands shaking from too much coffee and not enough sleep. You should be resting, Marcus said, pulling her inside. I can't rest. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. I see what she's going to do when I walk into that boardroom. What's she going to do? Fight, lie, manipulate, turn everyone against me. She's been doing it for 30 years. She's very good at it. Marcus guided her to the couch, sat her down, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders like she was a child recovering from a nightmare. Tell me something, he said. What? When you were growing up, did you ever stand up to her even once? Victoria thought back through decades of compliance. The locked rooms, the silent dinners, the systematic destruction of every spark of rebellion. Once, she said finally. When I was 16, she wanted me to break up with a boy I was dating, said he was unsuitable. I refused, said I loved him. What happened? She had him expelled from school, spread rumors that he'd been selling drugs. His family moved away to escape the scandal. Victoria's voice flattened. I never tried again after that. But you're trying now. Now I have something worth fighting for. Marcus took her hand. I want to be there tomorrow, in the boardroom. Marcus. I know I can't do anything official. I know I'm just the broke guy from Brooklyn dating the CEO's daughter. But I want to be there. So you know you're not alone. Victoria felt tears threatening again. She'd done more crying in the past month than in the previous 26 years combined. She'll use you against me. She'll say I'm doing this because of you, because you've manipulated me. Let her say it. We both know the truth. The truth doesn't always matter in rooms like that. It matters to us. Marcus squeezed her hand. And maybe that's enough. Victoria stayed until midnight, then forced herself to go home and try to sleep. She managed 4 hours of fitful rest filled with dreams of locked rooms and crying kittens, and her mother's cold voice saying, Thornton women don't cry. When she woke, the fear was still there. But so was something else. Determination. The boardroom felt different when Victoria walked in Tuesday morning. 12 board members already seated around the long table. Her attorney Sterling positioned beside her chair. Legal documents distributed to each place setting marked confidential. And at the far end of the table, Eleanor Ashford. Her mother was dressed impeccably as always. Pearl earrings, designer suit. Not a hair out of place. She looked at Victoria with an expression of mild curiosity, as if this emergency meeting were a minor inconvenience rather than an existential threat. Victoria took her seat. Her hands were steady. Her voice when she spoke didn't waver. Thank you all for coming. I've called this meeting to present evidence of serious criminal activity within Ashford Industries. The room went silent. Specifically, Victoria continued, I have documentation of systematic bribery of city officials over a 15-year period, tax evasion through offshore shell companies, and safety code violations that directly led to the Riverside building collapse in 2019. This is absurd, Eleanor said calmly. My daughter is clearly going through some kind of emotional crisis. I suggest we adjourn and allow her time to— The evidence is in front of you, Victoria interrupted. Bank records, wire transfers, emails explicitly ordering safety specifications to be reduced below code. I encourage you to review it. The board members began flipping through the documents. Victoria watched their faces change as the scope of the evidence became clear. Harold Westbrook, the chairman, spoke first. These emails, Eleanor, you explicitly ordered steel specifications reduced. Those emails are fabricated, obviously. The metadata confirms their authenticity, Sterling said. We've had them independently verified by 3 separate forensic specialists. Then the specialists were bribed. My daughter has apparently decided to stage a coup, and she's willing to manufacture evidence to do it. I also have testimony, Victoria said, from Grace Ashford, your sister, documenting a pattern of manipulation and destruction going back 30 years. And I have the construction manager from the Riverside project willing to testify that you personally pressured him to cut corners. Eleanor's composure cracked for the first time. A flicker of something, fear maybe, or rage crossed her features before being suppressed. You've been busy, she said. I learned from the best. This is about the man, isn't it? The single father. You're destroying our family because he's convinced you to turn against me. This is about you, about what you've done, about what you've been doing for decades while everyone looked the other way. I built this company. I made Ashford Industries what it is today. You built it on bribery and intimidation. You maintained it through threats and manipulation, and you hurt people, real people, to protect your position. Victoria stood. She needed to be standing for this. I'm asking the board to vote on Eleanor Ashford's immediate suspension pending full investigation. I'm also asking that we self-report to the SEC and cooperate fully with any resulting inquiry. If you do this, Eleanor said quietly, you'll destroy everything. Not just me, everything your grandfather built, everything your father worked for. Dad would have been ashamed of what you've done. He believed in doing things right. He believed in integrity. Your father was weak. That's why he died at 52. The stress of trying to be honorable in a dishonorable world killed him. The room went completely still. Victoria felt the words hit her like a physical blow. All these years she'd believed her father's heart attack was random bad luck. Now she wondered how much stress Eleanor had caused him, how much pressure, how much pain. "Call the vote," she said. Her voice sounded strange in her own ears. Harold Westbrook cleared his throat. "All in favor of suspending Eleanor Ashford pending investigation." 7 hands went up. Opposed, 2 hands. Board members who had been close to Eleanor for years, who probably had their own reasons to fear what an investigation might uncover. Abstaining, 3 hands including Harold himself. "The motion passes," Harold said. "Eleanor, you are suspended from your position effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building." Eleanor stood slowly. She gathered her papers, her purse, her composure. When she reached the door, she turned back. "You think you've won," she said to Victoria. "You haven't. You've just started a war you can't finish." Then she was gone. The silence lasted exactly 4 seconds before the room erupted. The hours after the vote blurred together. Legal consultations, press statements, calls from shareholders demanding explanations. Victoria handled it all on autopilot, her mind still stuck on her mother's final words. "You've just started a war you can't finish." She knew Eleanor too well to dismiss the threat. The first attack came that evening. Victoria's phone started buzzing with news alerts around 6 p.m. She opened the first one and felt her blood go cold. Ashford heiress in shocking affair with unemployed single father. The article included photos. Victoria and Marcus kissing in the rain. Victoria leaving his Brooklyn apartment. Victoria at the zoo with Zoe. The narrative was brutal. Troubled billionaire abandons family legacy for ill-advised romance with gold-digging single father. Unnamed sources questioned Victoria's mental stability. Experts speculated about manipulation and undue influence. By morning, it was everywhere. Marcus called at 7 a.m. "Have you seen the news?" "I've seen it. They're saying I'm using you for money, that I targeted you at the fertility clinic." "I know." "Victoria, my daughter's school called. Parents have been asking questions. Other kids are talking about Zoe's dad being on the news." The guilt hit Victoria like a wave. She'd known Eleanor would retaliate. She'd warned Marcus it would get ugly. But hearing it actually happening, hearing the pain in his voice, was different from anticipating it. "I'm so sorry." "Don't apologize. This isn't your fault." "It's exactly my fault. I started this war. You and Zoe are collateral damage." "We're not collateral damage. We're your family. And family doesn't run when things get hard." Victoria's throat tightened. How is Zoe handling it? She doesn't understand most of it. But she knows something's wrong. She keeps asking why people are being mean about Miss Victoria. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that sometimes people say mean things about people they don't know. And that the only thing that matters is how we treat each other." "That's good. That's exactly right." "Victoria." Marcus's voice softened. "We're going to get through this. All 3 of us. Whatever she throws at us. What if it gets worse? Then we handle worse. Together." It got worse. The second attack came 3 days later, another CPS visit. This time with more pointed questions, more invasive documentation, more obvious intent to find something, anything that could be used against Marcus. Victoria was at the apartment when they arrived. She watched the social worker make notes about the small space, the second-hand furniture, the fact that Marcus slept on a pull-out couch so Zoe could have the bedroom. "Is there a reason you're both living in such cramped conditions?" the social worker asked. "Because it's what I can afford," Marcus said calmly. "Your girlfriend is a billionaire. Surely she could help with housing." "My girlfriend has offered. I've declined. I don't want my daughter growing up thinking money solves everything." The social worker made another note. Victoria stepped forward. Is this investigation based on legitimate concerns, or is it based on an anonymous complaint from someone with a vendetta? I'm not at liberty to discuss the source of complaints. Then I'll tell you who it is. Eleanor Ashford, my mother, who is currently under investigation for multiple felonies and is using the child welfare system to harass her daughter's partner. The social worker's pen stopped moving. This is abuse of process, Victoria continued. And when the investigation into my mother concludes, I'll be recommending that her manipulation of CPS become part of the charges. Miss Ashford, you can finish your inspection. You won't find anything wrong because there's nothing wrong. But I want it on record that this visit happened because of Eleanor Ashford's personal vendetta, not because of any legitimate concern about this child's welfare. The social worker left 20 minutes later finding nothing. But the damage was done. Zoe had hidden in her room the entire time, clutching her stuffed elephant, asking Daddy why the lady was in their house again. That night, after Zoe was finally asleep, Victoria and Marcus sat in the dark living room and faced the reality of their situation. She's not going to stop, Marcus said. No. What else can she do? She's already suspended. The investigation is ongoing. What cards does she have left? Money, connections, decades of favors owed. She can make our lives miserable even from the sidelines. So what do we do? Victoria had been thinking about this for days. The answer wasn't pleasant, but it was necessary. I need to talk to her, face to face. One last time. Why? Because this isn't sustainable. She'll keep attacking until someone stops her. And the only person who's ever been able to get through to her even a little is me. You think you can reason with her? No, I think I can offer her a choice. A way out that doesn't involve burning everything to the ground. What kind of choice? She resigns, cooperates with the investigation, gets help for whatever is broken inside her, and in exchange, I advocate for reduced charges, and maybe eventually allow supervised contact with her grandchildren. Marcus was silent for a long moment. You're offering her redemption. I'm offering her the possibility of redemption. Whether she takes it is up to her. And if she doesn't, then she faces the full consequences. Criminal charges, prison possibly, complete destruction of everything she's built. You'd do that. Send your own mother to prison. Victoria thought of the locked rooms, the killed kitten, the 26 years of emotional starvation, the father whose death might have been accelerated by Eleanor's pressure. If she refuses to change, yes, I'd do that. The meeting with Eleanor happened 3 days later. Victoria chose the location carefully: Eleanor's penthouse, her mother's territory. A place where Eleanor would feel powerful in control, less likely to lash out unpredictably. The woman who answered the door looked nothing like the polished executive Victoria had faced in the boardroom. Eleanor's hair was uncombed. She wore no makeup. Her silk robe was wrinkled, stained with something that might have been coffee or wine. You came to gloat, Eleanor said flatly. I came to talk. There's nothing to talk about. You've destroyed me. You destroyed yourself. I just showed people the evidence. Eleanor stepped back, allowing Victoria to enter. The penthouse was a mess. Papers scattered across surfaces, empty glasses on every table. The carefully curated space Victoria remembered from childhood had been transformed into something chaotic and desperate. What do you want? Eleanor asked. I want to offer you a choice. Victoria sat down uninvited. After a moment, Eleanor sat across from her. The investigation is going to conclude, Victoria said. When it does, you'll face criminal charges, bribery, tax evasion, negligence resulting in injury. You could get 10 years, minimum. I'm aware. But there's another option. You resign formally, cooperate fully with investigators, enter therapy, real therapy with a specialist in trauma and control issues. And you stay away from me, from Marcus, from Zoe while you do the work. And in exchange, I advocate for leniency, reduced charges, possibly no prison time if you're genuinely working to change. Eleanor laughed. It was an ugly sound. You think I need to change? I built an empire. I created something from nothing. Everything I did for this family. You locked me in my room for 24 hours because I cried over a kitten. I was teaching you strength. You were teaching me that love is dangerous, that attachment leads to punishment, that the only way to survive is to feel nothing. Victoria leaned forward. I spent 34 years believing I couldn't love, that I was broken, incapable, and I almost lost the first real thing I've ever had because of what you taught me. That man, his name is Marcus. He has a daughter named Zoe, and I love them both. That's not weakness. That's the only thing that matters. Eleanor's face twisted. Love didn't save your father. Love didn't build this company. Love is a fairy tale that poor people tell themselves to feel better about having nothing. Love is the only reason I'm sitting here offering you a chance instead of watching you go to prison. The words hung between them. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered in Eleanor's eyes. Vulnerability, maybe, or fear, or the faintest trace of regret. You have 48 hours, Victoria said. Resign, cooperate, get help, or face the consequences. She stood to leave. Victoria. She paused at the door. Do you really believe I can change? I don't know. But I believe you have the choice to try. That's more than you ever gave me. Victoria walked out and didn't look back. 47 hours and 36 minutes later, Eleanor Ashford issued a formal resignation. The statement was brief. Personal health reasons, need for reflection, gratitude for decades of service to the company. No admission of guilt, no apology, but also no fight. The investigation would continue. Charges were still possible, but Eleanor had chosen the path of least destruction. Victoria read the statement 3 times before believing it was real. She did it. She told Marcus that night. She actually did it. The therapy part 2. First appointment is next week. Dr. Morrison, a specialist in trauma and control patterns. Grace helped me find her. And you believe she'll actually go? I believe she'll try. For the first time in her life, she doesn't have another option. Marcus pulled her close. How do you feel? I don't know. Relieved, sad, confused. Victoria paused. She's my mother. I know what she did. I know who she is. But part of me still wanted her to be different. That's not weakness. That's being human. She might never change. The therapy might not work. She might just be going through the motions. Maybe. But you gave her the chance. That's more than most people would do. Victoria thought about the woman she'd seen in that penthouse. The uncombed hair, the stained robe, the chaos of a life unraveling. Her mother had spent 60 years building walls, controlling everything, crushing anyone who threatened her power. And now, finally, those walls had crumbled. Whether Eleanor could survive without them, whether she could become something different, was a question only time would answer. But Victoria had done what she could. The rest was up to Eleanor. Zoe wants to know if she can come to the wedding, Marcus said. Victoria blinked. What wedding? Ours. Eventually. Assuming you say yes when I ask. You haven't asked. I'm building up to it, testing the waters. Despite everything, the stress, the exhaustion, the lingering fear, Victoria found herself smiling. The waters are warm, she said. In case you're wondering. Good to know. He kissed her then soft and slow, and Victoria let herself sink into the feeling of being loved, of being wanted, of being enough exactly as she was. The battle wasn't over. There would be more hearings, more investigations, more complications to navigate. But the war, the real war, the one that had been raging inside Victoria for 34 years, was finally ending. And she was finally winning. 6 months changed everything. Victoria stood in what used to be her sterile penthouse, watching movers carry boxes filled with a life she barely recognized. The walls that once held corporate art now displayed Zoe's crayon drawings. The pristine white furniture had been replaced with pieces chosen for comfort rather than impression. And in the corner, a rocking chair waited for a baby who would arrive in 3 months. "Miss Victoria, where should Ella go?" Zoe appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed elephant and looking concerned about the chaos surrounding them. "Ella goes wherever you go, sweetie. She's your responsibility." "But what if she gets lost in the moving?" "Then we'll find her. We always find the things that matter." Zoe considered this, then nodded with the gravity of a child making an important decision. "I'll keep her in my backpack. That way she's safe." Perfect plan. Marcus emerged from the bedroom carrying a box labeled "Victoria's Books Handle with Care" in his careful handwriting. "That's the last one. We're officially homeless." "We're officially between homes. There's a difference." "Is there?" "The new place has 3 bedrooms, and a yard, and a school 2 blocks away that Zoe can walk to. And it costs approximately 1 million times what I could ever afford." Victoria crossed to him, wrapped her arms around his waist. "We talked about this. The money is mine, but the family is ours. That's how partnership works." "I know. It's just—" He shook his head. "Growing up, we never had anything like this. And now I'm moving into a brownstone in Park Slope because my wife is a billionaire. Fiancé. We're not married yet. Technicality. The point stands. The point is that our daughter is going to have a bedroom big enough to actually move around in. And our son is going to have a nursery that doesn't share a wall with the neighbor's television." Marcus's hand moved to her stomach, resting on the curve that grew more visible every week. "Our son," he repeated softly. "I still can't believe it worked." Dr. Simmons said the chances were less than 5%. Apparently were statistical anomalies. "I prefer miracle." "You would." He kissed her forehead. "Come on. The truck's waiting." They drove to the new house in Marcus's Honda Civic. Victoria's Tesla had been sold months ago, the money donated to a scholarship fund for architecture students. Material excess had lost its appeal somewhere between falling in love and choosing to build a real life. The brownstone was beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with price. Original woodwork, built-in bookshelves, a backyard with a tree that Zoe had already claimed for a future treehouse. "This is where we're living now?" Zoe asked, her face pressed against the car window. "This is home," Victoria said. "What do you think?" "I think it's perfect. Can I pick my room first?" "You can pick your room first." Zoe was out of the car before the engine stopped racing toward the front door with the enthusiasm that made her so easy to love. Marcus took Victoria's hand. "You okay?" "I'm terrified." "Of what?" "That I'll mess this up. That I'll become my mother without realizing it. That I'll say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing and damage our kids the way she damaged me." "You won't." "How can you be so sure?" "Because you're asking the question. Because you're worried about it." He squeezed her hand. "Bad parents don't worry about being bad parents. They just assume they're right and everyone else is wrong." That sounds like something from a parenting book. "It's from therapy. Dr. Hammond's been helpful." Victoria smiled despite her fears. They'd been seeing Dr. Hammond together for 4 months now, couples sessions that had taught them both things about communication and conflict, and the way childhood trauma shaped adult relationships. "Did she also tell you that reassuring your pregnant fiancé is important for her emotional well-being?" "She might have mentioned it. Along with foot rubs and late-night ice cream runs." "Good therapist." "The best." They walked into their new house together. The wedding happened 2 weeks before Victoria's due date. She'd wanted something small, intimate. The opposite of everything Eleanor had ever planned for her, the society weddings and strategic alliances and marriages designed to consolidate power rather than celebrate love. 30 people gathered in their backyard on a Saturday afternoon in June. Marcus's mother flew in from Virginia, openly weeping from the moment she saw her son in his suit. His brother came with his wife and their twins, who immediately became Zoe's best friends. Royce served as best man, nervous and proud, and delivering a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. Aunt Grace stood in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief that had belonged to their grandmother. And in the back, sitting alone, Eleanor watched. It had taken months of negotiation to reach this point. Therapy 3 times a week. Supervised meetings with Dr. Morrison present. Baby steps towards something that might eventually resemble a relationship. Eleanor wasn't healed. Might never be fully healed. But she was trying in her own damaged way to become someone different than who she'd been. Victoria had decided that trying was enough. For now. Dearly beloved, the officiant began. We are gathered here to witness the union of 2 people who found each other in the most unexpected circumstances. Zoe stood beside them, clutching a basket of flower petals she'd already scattered with more enthusiasm than accuracy. Her dress was purple, her choice non-negotiable, and her smile was wider than Victoria had ever seen it. Do you, Victoria Elizabeth Ashford, take this man to be your husband? I do. Do you, Marcus Alexander Williams, take this woman to be your wife? I do. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Marcus kissed her while their families cheered, and Zoe tugged at Victoria's dress, asking if she could throw more petals now. Is it official? Zoe asked. Are you really my mom now? Victoria knelt down, wedding dress pooling around her. I've been your mom in every way that matters for a long time. This just makes it paperwork. So I can call you Mom, for real. The word hit Victoria like a wave. Mom. She'd never expected to be called that. Had never believed she could earn it. You can call me whatever you want, sweetheart, as long as I get to call you my daughter. Zoe threw her arms around Victoria's neck. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Zoe. More than you'll ever know. Over Zoe's shoulder, Victoria saw Eleanor watching them. Something complicated crossed her mother's face, pain maybe. Regret. The recognition of everything she'd lost by refusing to love unconditionally. Their eyes met for a moment. Victoria nodded slightly. An acknowledgement. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something that left the door open. Eleanor nodded back. Then Zoe pulled away, demanding to know when the cake would be served, and the moment passed. But something had shifted. Something small but significant. The possibility of healing. Maya Victoria Williams arrived 3 weeks later, screaming at the injustice of leaving the womb and immediately claiming everyone's attention. Victoria held her daughter for the first time and felt something crack open inside her chest, something that had been locked away for 34 years, finally released. She's perfect, Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. She has your eyes. And your stubbornness. Did you hear that cry? That's not a baby who takes no for an answer. Victoria laughed through tears. Good, she'll need that. Zoe peered at her new sister from a safe distance, clearly uncertain about this small red creature who had disrupted everything. She's really tiny. She'll get bigger. Does she do anything? Not yet. Right now she just eats and sleeps and cries. That sounds boring. It is a little, but it gets better. And you get to teach her things. How to color, how to build with blocks, how to do princess voices when Daddy reads bedtime stories. Zoe's expression shifted from skepticism to interest. I get to teach her things. Everything you know. Big sisters are very important. I'm a big sister now. The best big sister in the whole world. Zoe studied Maya with new appreciation. Okay, I guess she can stay. The first months of Maya's life blurred together in a haze of sleepless nights and endless feedings and moments of pure, overwhelming love. Victoria discovered that she was capable of things she'd never imagined. Changing diapers at 3 a.m. without resentment. Singing lullabies in French while pacing the living room. Letting her schedule collapse entirely because the baby needed her and nothing else mattered. The Ice Queen was melting one moment at a time. You're doing it again, Marcus said one evening. Doing what? That face. The one you make when you're surprised by your own emotions. Victoria looked down at Maya, asleep in her arms. I didn't know I could feel like this. I spent so long believing I was broken, that the part of me that was supposed to love had been trained out of existence. And now I feel everything. It's overwhelming, and terrifying, and wonderful. That's called being a mother. Is this how you felt with Zoe? Every single day, still do. The fear never goes away. You just learn to live with it. Victoria shifted Maya slightly, watching her daughter's tiny face twitch in sleep. My mother called today. Marcus tensed. What did she want? To ask about the baby. She saw the birth announcement online. She wanted to know if I was okay. What did you tell her? I told her the truth. That I'm exhausted and happy and terrified and grateful. That Maya is healthy. That Zoe is adjusting better than expected. That our family is complete. Did she ask to meet Maya? Yes. What did you say? Victoria had been thinking about this for weeks, weighing the risks against the possibilities, trying to decide what kind of grandmother Eleanor could become if given the chance. I said maybe, eventually. If she keeps going to therapy, if she keeps working on herself, if Dr. Morrison agrees she's ready. You're giving her another chance. I'm giving her the possibility of a chance. There's a difference. Is there? She missed my entire childhood by choosing control over love. She doesn't get to miss Maya's childhood too, not if she's willing to change. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You're a better person than I am. I'm not. I'm just tired of carrying anger. It's heavy, and I'd rather use that energy loving our kids than hating my mother. Dr. Hammond would be proud of that insight. Dr. Hammond charges $400 an hour. She should be proud of something. Maya stirred, making the small sounds that preceded waking. Victoria rocked her, gently murmuring words she'd never expected to say. It's okay, little one. Mommy's here. You're safe. The word still felt strange in her mouth. Mommy. Such a simple word for such a complicated identity. But it was hers now. She'd earned it. The first supervised visit with Eleanor happened when Maya was 6 months old. Dr. Morrison was present along with Marcus and Zoe, and enough tension to fill a football stadium. Eleanor sat stiffly in their living room looking at her granddaughter with an expression Victoria couldn't quite read. She's beautiful, Eleanor said finally. She has your grandmother's chin. She has Marcus's eyes. I noticed. Eleanor paused. He's good with her. I can see that. He's good with all of us. I know. I was wrong about him, about a lot of things. The admission hung in the air. Eleanor Ashford didn't apologize, didn't admit mistakes. The fact that she was doing so now even obliquely marked a change that Victoria hadn't dared hope for. Would you like to hold her? Eleanor's eyes widened. You'd let me? If you're careful. She's not a fan of sudden movements. Victoria placed Maya in Eleanor's arms, watching her mother's face transform. The hardness softened. The control relaxed. For just a moment, Eleanor looked like someone who remembered what love felt like. Hello, Maya, Eleanor whispered. I'm your grandmother. I'm going to try very hard to be better for you than I was for your mother. Maya reached up and grabbed Eleanor's pearl necklace. Strong grip. Eleanor said something like a smile crossing her face. Like Victoria when she was a baby. I didn't know you remembered that. I remember everything, Victoria. Every moment. Eleanor's voice caught. I didn't know how to love you without trying to control you. I thought they were the same thing. They're not. I know that now. It took me 64 years and losing everything, but I know it now. Zoe appeared in the doorway, watching the scene with suspicious eyes. She hadn't forgiven Eleanor for the CPS visits, for the mean stories in the news, for making her father sad. Zoe, Victoria said gently. Come say hello to your grandmother. She's not my grandmother, not the real kind. Zoe. It's okay, Eleanor said. She's right. I haven't earned that title. Not yet. She looked at Zoe with something that might have been respect. But I'd like to try if you'll let me. I'm not very good at being nice. I'm learning. It's slow. Zoe considered this with the brutal honesty of childhood. Are you sorry for being mean? Yes, very sorry. Do you promise to be better? I promise to try every day. That's not the same as promising to be better. No, Eleanor admitted. It's not, but it's the only promise I can keep. Zoe studied her grandmother for a long moment. Then she nodded once decisively. Okay, you can be my grandmother, but if you're mean again, I'll tell Daddy and he'll make you leave. That's fair? And you have to come to my birthday party. Grandmothers come to birthday parties. It's the rule. I'll be there. With a present. With a present. A good present. Not something boring like clothes. Not clothes. I promise. Zoe seemed satisfied. She crossed to where Eleanor sat and peered at Maya. She's drooling on your necklace. I noticed. It's fine. It looks expensive. It was. But pearls can be cleaned. Eleanor looked at her granddaughter with something approaching warmth. Some things are more important than keeping everything perfect. Zoe nodded as though this was obvious wisdom she'd known all along. That's what Mom says too. Mom. Victoria felt the word settle into her heart like a gift. She'd spent 34 years believing she wasn't capable of love, that her mother had successfully trained the capacity out of her, that she would always be alone, always be cold, always be the ice queen everyone expected her to be. She'd been wrong. Love had been there all along, buried beneath layers of protection and fear, waiting for someone brave enough to help her find it. 1 year later, Victoria stood in Central Park watching her daughters play. Maya toddled across the grass with the unsteady determination of a 14-month-old chasing bubbles that Zoe blew with exaggerated patience. Marcus sat beside Victoria on a bench, his hand resting on her knee, both of them content to simply exist in this moment. The tabloid stories had faded. The SEC investigation had concluded with fines and community service, but no prison time for Eleanor. Ashford Industries was rebuilding under new leadership. Victoria had stepped back to a board position, choosing to focus on family rather than empire. The brownstone was home now, filled with noise and chaos and love. Zoe's getting good at the big sister thing, Marcus observed. She was born for it. I think she likes having someone who looks up to her. Everyone needs that. Did you? Growing up? My brother. He was 2 years younger, always following me around. I pretended to be annoyed, but secretly I loved it. I always wanted a sibling. Someone to share the pressure. Someone who understood what it was like. You have that now. Grace, she emails you every week. It's not the same as growing up together, but it's something. Maya tripped over her own feet and landed on her bottom. She looked startled for a moment, then laughed and pushed herself back up. She's going to be okay, Marcus said. How do you know? Because she has us. Because she'll never doubt that she's loved. Because when she falls down, she'll know someone will be there to help her up. Victoria leaned into her husband, feeling the warmth of his body against hers. I used to think love was weakness, she said. That needing someone made you vulnerable. That the only way to survive was to need nothing and no one. And now I think love is the only strength that matters. Everything else, money, power, control, it's all just distraction. The only thing that actually makes life worth living is the people you share it with. That's very philosophical for a Saturday afternoon. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About what? Victoria watched her daughters. Zoe was now demonstrating cartwheels while Maya clapped and shrieked with approval. About who I want to be. Not who my mother tried to make me. Not who the business world expected me to be. Just Me. And who is that? A wife, a mother, a sister to Grace, a daughter who's learning to forgive, someone who feels things, even the hard things, and doesn't hide from them. That sounds like someone I'd want to spend my life with. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Marcus laughed. Funny, I was just thinking the same thing. Eleanor appeared at the edge of the park, walking slowly toward them. She came to family gatherings now supervised, monitored, still working through decades of damage with Dr. Morrison's help. She wasn't the grandmother Victoria had wished for as a child, but she was trying, and trying, Victoria had learned, was the beginning of everything. Grandma! Zoe spotted her first and ran over to drag Eleanor toward the bubble activity. You have to help. Maya needs more bubbles and my arm is tired. I think I can manage bubbles, Eleanor said, allowing herself to be led. Victoria watched her mother kneel on the grass in clothes that cost more than most people's monthly rent, blowing bubbles for grandchildren she'd almost never known. She's getting better, Marcus said quietly. She's trying. That's all I can ask. It's more than she gave you. I know, but I don't want to be like her. I don't want to hold grudges until they poison everything. I want to break the cycle. For our kids, for their kids, for everyone who comes after. You already have. Victoria looked at him. Have I? Victoria, you were raised by a woman who locked you in rooms and killed your pets to teach you not to feel. And you became someone who loves so fiercely that you're willing to forgive even her. That's not just breaking the cycle, that's obliterating it. The words settled into Victoria's chest like sunlight. Maya came toddling back, arms raised, demanding to be picked up. Victoria scooped her daughter onto her lap and held her close, breathing in the smell of baby shampoo and grass and summer air. Mama, Maya said, patting Victoria's face with clumsy hands. Mama. Yes, baby. I'm here. Mama's here. She would always be here. For Maya. For Zoe. For Marcus. For the family she'd built against impossible odds. The Ice Queen had melted completely. In her place stood someone new. Someone soft and strong at the same time. Someone who had learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the bravest thing a person could be. Victoria thought about the woman she'd been 18 months ago. Standing alone in her penthouse, scrolling through fertility clinic websites, convinced she would never be capable of love. That woman felt like a stranger now. A stranger who had needed exactly what Victoria had found: a single father with a Honda Civic, and a daughter who asked hard questions. A family that welcomed her despite her sharp edges. A chance to become something different than what she'd been made to be. Some people said Ice Queens couldn't change. Victoria Ashford Williams was living proof they were wrong. She held her daughter closer and watched her family play in the afternoon sun, and she knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Not alone in a penthouse, not running a corporate empire, not performing the role her mother had written for her. Here, present, loved. It had taken 34 years to find this feeling. She would spend the rest of her life protecting it. Because love wasn't weakness. Love was everything, and Victoria finally understood that she'd been capable of it all along.